Well, hello there everyone, this is Ottomagic Critic. Alright, raise your hands if you've ever watched my Doodle Tones apology video. I see I have a fair amount of hands being raised. Now, if you remembered anything from the video, aside from me saying sorry to Doodle Tones, obviously, you probably remember me bringing up Quinn Curio's video called Everything Wrong with the Animation Community Critics. I personally recommend the video. It is one of my favorite YouTube videos from the commentary community. I won't be spoiling a whole lot of this video, but long story short, Quinn has pointed out a lot of bad faith criticism and sketchy stuff that the critics of Storytime Animations had. Many of the things that the commentary community has done relating to the Storytime Animation community that are usually stupid at best and absolutely disgusting at worst are all presented in the video in broad daylight. The video was generally positively received. It has scored over 1 million hits on YouTube, and her criticisms in Math Team in particular has earned her as one of his editorial advisors. Now, while this video has subsequently won the free marketplace of ideas in the commentary community, there are still people who are willing to disagree and put this video to the test, which is exactly the type of video we are going to commentate on today. The video we will be examining is from a person named Liam Dowling, who made a video about Quinn Curio's video that I talked about. If you are a subscriber of Doodle Tones, you probably know who Liam Dowling is. The video I am covering is up there as one of her worst commentaries of 2021. Sounds interesting, huh? Anyway, let's see if this is warranted.
So today I'm going to be talking about one of the most disingenuous hypocrites you'll ever see in your life.
Holy shit, is that another fucking Bavaria reference? Fucking goddammit, I hate having to interject on videos that barely even reach 5 seconds, but seriously, it is extremely urgent that I bring this up, because it's going to bug the absolute hell out of me, if I don't say it right now. You wanna know what this guy's voice sounds like? This guy sounds like Isaac Arthur. You know, the very smart YouTuber that makes interesting videos relating to ambitious futuristic projects and human interstellar colonization. Just listen to his voice and see for yourself.
To ask not just what such a life form is, but what its life might be like, or what our life might be like by becoming one. And a critical notion of synthetic life is that it is made by merging two or more things together. Indeed, one might argue that the children and grandchildren of a synthetic life form are not themselves synthetic anymore. Seem as a distant descendant of an immigrant to some land usually is no longer viewed as an immigrant themselves.
Quinn Curio, a person who presents herself as fair and well balanced when that's anything but the case. A person who constantly tries to victimize others to shield them from personal responsibility. And looking at Quinn from the past to the present right here, she has not changed in the slightest.
You see, the similarities are so startling it's almost unbelievable.
A person who constantly tries to victimize others to shield them from personal responsibility. And looking at Quinn from the past to the present right here, she has not changed in the slightest.
Are you sure about that, buddy? You know, from a perspective of pure speculation and understanding of the human condition, I don't think I could entirely agree with you on the notion that Quinn has not changed as a person throughout time. Using myself as an example, I myself am not the same person I was in the beginning of 2018. Whether you understand this or not, nobody is stagnant.
To give some background on Quinn, I'm going to be talking about her video, Everything Wrong with the Animation Community Critics. I'm going to showcase the fundamental flaws in her video. Her very obvious favoritism towards Storytime animators is blinding her through her constant demonizing of commentary, her lack of understanding of it. I'm going to show just how disingenuous Quinn is, past and present day. So strap in, grab some popcorn.
Sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, grab some Pepsi. Grab some McDonald's double cheeseburgers. Grab some double cheese pizza with extra cheese. Grab some cola. Grab some Doritos. Grab some more processed foods. And let's get this started.
Because it's going to be a long one. Because Quinn Curio is positively disingenuous.
He said it! He said it!
Let's go.
I swear to Christ, if you give me a dreaded copyright strike because of a baby meme that you decide to choose out of literally everything else in your library, I am going to—
It can be so easily hand-waved how cruel so many of these videos are to their subjects or friends of their subjects. Cruelty the community seems numb or oblivious to. It can be sneaky or completely overt. In a movie review, if you stop to talk about how the director was a bad person, it would be like, this director did unspeakable things to his adopted daughter, and then an ensuing discussion about separating the art from the artist, or not letting the pathologically abusive run around to vacuum up more victims and money. In a YouTube Storytime review, the criticism is, this guy downloaded our videos and shared it in his group chat with his friends, so we lost a little bit of views, and then he insulted us.
Oh goody, clips from Quinn Curio's video that requires more context before we venture further into the video. The first clip showed Quinn talking about the discussion patterns that the Storytime critics like to engage in, and how it is ineffective when it comes to ensuring that the person will be taking the criticism into consideration. As for the other clip you've shown to prove that she's somehow a hypocrite, she talked about how storytime critics would make videos where half of the video is just exploring how terrible these storytime animators are. The problem is that they have ridiculously high standards for them. They think they are supposed to be a bunch of nice and huggy people, so in the event where they do something that may contradict their preconceived idea of what they are supposed to be, they'll treat it like they are on par with Hitler. Hence the example. No one truly thinks that movie directors are just benevolent creatures based on how people think they present themselves. So in the eyes of the average storytime critic, downloading someone's video just to make fun of it and not contribute to their views is on the same gravitas as said movie director doing unspeakable things to their adopted daughter, which goes to show that there isn't really anything scandalous that goes on in the storytime animation community. There, now that I cleared all of that up, let's see your response.
Let me explain what Quinn just cowardly glossed over right there. She's talking about critics and commentary channels, their cruelty, their meanness towards storytime animators.
Well, that's certainly one of her criticisms, but that isn't her main criticism at all. She doesn't have a problem with performative cruelty. Hell, even in the video, she even said that it's an important rhetorical tool, but questions whether or not these storytime critics are using them correctly.
Now, meanness, insults, mockery, blood are important rhetorical tools. I think they can be vital, and I don't think we all need to be holding hands and singing songs all the time. But I'm questioning, are you using your rhetorical tools correctly when you're pulling out the big guns? Because damn it, why won't you listen to me when I tell you to color your backgrounds?
I'm trying to help you. If her criticism was merely just saying that they are mean, she wouldn't be making a 1-hour video going over literally every other problem in the community.
She reiterates this ad nauseum in her video, and she outright indicates that they're bullies. She sees commentary channels as so mean and malicious, how cruel they are. Well, you're showing a lot of cruelty right there, Quinn.
Really? That's your ultimate rebuttal? Quinn Curio, you claim that other commentary YouTubers are being mean to storytime animators? Yeah, well, you're being mean too. Ha ha, take that, Quinn Curio. Swah 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 swah. What the fuck kind of rebuttal is that? Was the copium not enough that you just had to rub that one out? Also, gotta love how your gameplay footage matches what you're saying.
You're showing a lot of cruelty right there, Quinn. She's talking about how in Turkey Tom's video of storytime animation, he specifically talked about a Discord call between Tim Tom, Speechy, Photoferret, and Rude Rhino, 4 storytime animators who, in a Discord call together, they downloaded Daft Penis storytime animation video. Now they did this specifically so they wouldn't contribute towards his views. And while they're looking at his video, they're insulting him, they're taking the piss out of him, calling him Daft Penis, cursing him out. Oh, but of course, you don't want to talk about this, do you, Quinn? Because this goes against your narrative that the storytime animators can do no wrong. They're just poor little victims in all of this, and that the mean, cruel critics, the commentary channels, they have to be put in their place. So I guess rules for thee, but not for me. You are a complete hypocrite, Quinn.
So, let me get this straight. Quinn Curio is being a hypocrite and a big ol' meanie, because she didn't acknowledge the ultimate news-breaking scandal where these storytime animators hurt poor Daft Penis' feelings by downloading his video and shared it in a group chat to make fun of it. Firstly, Quinn Curio was merely bringing this situation up as an example of the worst things the storytime animators would do, and she's doing it in order to bring up a much broader point about what storytime critics like to do, and that is holding them up to a preconceived stereotype about how nice and huggy and quirky they are supposed to be, and would treat anything that contradicts this notion like it's some crisis. She's not going to stop in the middle of her point just to go off on a 2-minute spielfest about how bad the storytime animators are for doing such horrible things, because that distracts from the main point that she was in the middle of talking about. Oh yeah, we'll get back to that in a moment. I mean, after all, the video is literally called Everything Wrong with Animation Community Critics, so some petty Discord drama is completely irrelevant to what Quinn was talking about. Sure, Quinn can have a certified enlightened centrist moment and say that both sides are equally at fault in the situation, but then she would have to actually look into why the storytime animators downloaded Daft Penis' video just to make fun of it. I mean, we're not dealing with a good actor. We're talking about someone who accused Jaden of faking an eating disorder and proceeded to insult her, told someone to stop making videos altogether, etc. Would it be anyone's surprise that they would eventually retaliate against him? Some sides are worse than others.
Because if the roles were reversed here, you'd absolutely lace into the commentary channels.
You're right, because the video is called Everything Wrong with Animation Community Critics. The video is meant to analyze the many flaws of the animation community critics. If the storytime critics were doing it, then yes, she would have every right to call them out on it, because they are the aggressors. They were the ones who were firing the first shot. The storytime animators were doing it as a response to the sorts of behaviors Daft Penis and others have done to them. Flailing your arms around bemoaning that Quinn has a double standard ignores the context and nuance behind the things that happen between the storytime animators and critics, and whether or not it's worse than the other scenario.
You say about how cruel and malicious it is, them insulting and chatting shit about a storytime animator. Oh, but when it's the storytime animators acting childish, when they're acting douchey, no, that doesn't go with the narrative you're trying to weave here. So what do? You pathetically try to gloss over this point, acting like Turkey Tom is being petty because he brings up a valid point. You're allowed to call into question somebody's character and when they're acting shitty. He did it, you do it throughout your video, and I'm doing it with you. So Quinn, how's about you be consistent? You don't get to have this both ways, Quinn. If you're gonna complain when according to you critics, commentary channels are acting mean, then do the same thing when storytimes are doing it.
Yeah, I checked the original video that Lime is covering right now, and he basically just fucking lied to you. Literally a few seconds after she brought it up, she went on and conceded to the idea that it was mean, when she said that they are not just horrible egotists who are trying to pose as some benevolent sky daddy, but they are merely just individuals with flaws.
In a YouTube Storytime review, the criticism is, this guy downloaded our videos and shared it in his group chat with his friends, so we lost a little bit of views, and then he insulted us. But here, he talks about how the animation community is filled with nice people, and if I take that hyper literally, it means none of them should ever be mean. These things they bring up are usually mean or dismissive of them. Typically dismissive.
Whose approval is necessary? Daft, the Virgin Mary? So-called experts, them and their subjective commentary.
But they are at the same level, if not far tamer, than stuff that shows up in their own public Twitter feeds. Because they hold these people to such a higher standard than they hold themselves and their friends, it always comes off like they think they're at Disney World and they want to talk to the manager because Peter Pan was acting out of character. Like, no. This is a person. I'm sure many of them are putting in an effort to stay PG because they know a lot of their fans are young, but they didn't really sign a contract.
Yeah, what's that about Quinn ignoring examples that contradict her narrative again?
You're being purposely hypocritical here, because if this was the other way around, you'd demonize the commentary channels. You'd say, oh, think about the feelings of the animators, but I guess moral consistency doesn't apply to you, Quinn. Does Daft's feelings not matter? Does it not matter when it happens to commentary?
Jeez, you sound pretty fucking triggered right now. What, did these storytime animators really hurt your feelings?
Multiple critics have compared the Storytime community to the Sanford cult from Hot Fuzz. Once the critics arrive here, they begin conjecture that the Storytime YouTubers think they're gods who can do no wrong, that they believe themselves to be the infallible heroes of their own story, or that they've grown spoiled and lazy from having a big fan base. And they don't even notice how far a jump that is from Speechy offhandedly saying in a Discord server on the subject of her puppet, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They circle the quote, they interpret it as literally and as uncharitably as possible, and they refuse to think laterally.
Okay, first of all, Quinn, wrong. It wasn't multiple people, it was literally one person, the right opinion in his video. And you have the gall to talk about commentary, taking quotes as literally as possible? You're taking some meaningless throwaway joke. You're doing the same thing you accused them of, Quinn. Taking a bit of hyperbole and trying to use this as a legitimate point. A meaningless throwaway joke that in the grand scheme of his overall video doesn't mean a thing. It's a bit of hyperbole, Quinn. Are you seriously this wound up that you can't differentiate actual legitimate points from some throwaway lines, a bit of joking?
Guys, you don't understand. It's a joke, bro. It's a meaningless throwaway joke. We do a little bit of trolling, you know.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
Don't take it seriously. Ignore all the nuance and points that are conveyed from what I have said. A lot of people use this terrible excuse as a way of avoiding responsibility for the meaning their so-called jokes contain, even if it's not even a joke in the first place. So this is what you have to say in order to get through the bullshit. What's the joke? There, that's all you have to say. You know, a thing that you are failing to understand is that hyperbolic language and jokes can convey meaning, especially points criticizing certain things. Let's use our heads for a minute. What did the right opinion mean when he was supposedly joking about the Storytime animators being reminiscent of the Sanford cult from Hot Fuzz? Well, the right opinion made the comparison, since he views the Storytime animators as working hard to keep a friendly and warm persona, and will go to great lengths in order to preserve that image, hiding some of the more shadier stuff behind the scenes, and not to mention how they operate in a collectivized manner for the greater good.
We're going to pull back to the Something Else YT video. So I left this final part out of his response to the allegations against him that he was a ripoff because they're most relevant here. Basically, he not only says himself, but he features Jaden Animations, another YouTuber, to say he's not ripping off anyone and they don't mind because they're there to help each other out. So writing mean comments calling people ripoffs is not helpful at all to the community. The greater good. And this is a problem. The Storytime animation community sees themselves as one huge collective, as they all note on multiple occasions stepping on each other's toes would be disastrous for the algorithm, or the algorithm, as some like to brand it. So it only makes sense that they help each other out. On top of this, it means defending each other, which is something that they have done on multiple occasions. They all seem to be in a consensual business friendship with each other. If someone's leeching a bit, then that's alright, because even if they do, it helps everyone out. Using tags for views, sure, go for it. That's all good, but you can't be surprised if someone calls you out for it. And saying that it's all alright because everyone in the specific context was fine with it just won't wash with many people. If anyone here has watched Hot Fuzz, I compare the animation community to Sanford, the sort of place that works so hard to keep a lovely image that it requires questionable action sometimes to preserve it, and they can feel the pressure, and the harder they try to defend it, the more I feel they have something to hide, and the more the cracks begin to show. A really interesting example of this was when a YouTuber by the name of Manga Cayman made a response to Turkey Tom. The video was fair in many points, and it also brought up some tweets that Tom had subsequently deleted that would have given more context to his video. They were distasteful comments directed at someone's physical appearance, and I'm glad he removed them and subsequently was made to apologise over them. People shouldn't just run away from these. And although I do have problems with the video, I am almost certain they will be mostly discussed out by other YouTubers at this point, including Tom himself. Point is, his tweets were something that should have been included as a disclaimer given its relevance, and as he hadn't publicly apologised for them, it's credible that it served as an alternative explanation for a server ban, and on top of that, it looked like he was being a dick in a public Discord server. I might have banned him too. However, no, what I found most interesting was the Odd Ones Out's response in the comments section. Wow, I had no idea the stuff on Twitter happened. Thanks for showing us. Really makes me wonder why Tom left it out of his video. I've been binging your videos for a while. I think they're really good. I like that you have actual criticisms and bring up new things to the conversation. Well, James, you're gonna love this next part. I have sung my praises for the man and his content, but this is where it ends for now. James has no love for Tom, and to be honest, if I were in his shoes, I probably wouldn't either. But I don't like these comments. They're what I like to call an empty lead. It's a classic rhetorical tactic used by people when they want to take credibility from their detractors without giving them any way to respond to them. They firstly blow up whatever information or react in an emphatic manner, saying something like, wow, amazing, and then imply that something worse must be behind it without explicitly saying what you're thinking. Like, what on earth do you mean, makes you wonder? Cayman here just spent a whole fucking video explaining it. This is the most that James can really exert influence. Any greater acknowledgement of Turkey Tom would just be publicity for him, but my god does he try hard with everything he has. So I said to Tom in a group chat that it was a fair video on him, but what was with the Odd Ones Out comment? Boy, there was more. The Odd Ones Out had actually approached Tom and given him a whole lecture about the situation and how the tweets, these specific tweets, had ruined his reputation and could follow him forever.
Yeah, I'm not detecting any jokes here. I think the right opinion was trying to make an actual point. Now, say what you want about these points. Some of the things the right opinion brought up in his video aren't necessarily wrong. He did bring up that there are people out there that are just merely leeching off of the community. But to write off what the right opinion has said as nothing more than a joke with no other hidden meaning is not only dishonest, but it ignores the point the right opinion was trying to make. If you met George Carlin in the afterlife, I wouldn't think he would appreciate it all too much. If you said, hey, I really like your jokes, especially how they were non-political and they do not carry any intrinsic meaning whatsoever, because they are merely just throwaway jokes and nothing more. Am I right? The jokes that you hear can affect the way in which we think, especially if they have meaning behind it anyway, so you're not doing the right opinion any service if you do that.
So besides the blatant hypocrisy, Quinn, it sure is a good thing that you never use hyperbolic language in your video, right?
Now, meanness, insults, mockery, blood.
You can't be fucking serious. Alright, for those who are still unaware, Liam's whole interpretation of Quinn Curio's critique is that she has a problem with performative cruelty in critical videos, and Alt-Right insinuates that point alone could pretty much sum up most of her critiques. You wanna know something? You guys wanna see what Liam just left out of the video so he could isolate Quinn using hyperbolic language to prove that she is being disingenuous?
Now, meanness, insults, mockery, blood are important rhetorical tools. I think they can be vital, and I don't think we all need to be holding hands and singing songs all the time. But I'm questioning, are you using your rhetorical tools correctly when you're pulling out the big guns? Because damn it, why won't you listen to me when I tell you to color your backgrounds?
I'm trying to help you. Holy shit, look at all this extra bit of context that you purposefully left out of the video that completely disproves your preconceived narrative about Quinn Curio's overall critique. Yeah, she doesn't have a problem with performative cruelty in critical videos in itself. She has a problem with how these commentary channels use them. You sneaky, slimy son of a bitch. I fucking love this shit, dude. Not only does he have the gall to accuse Quinn Curio of ignoring or glossing over examples that don't fit her narrative, but actively do the exact same thing of what Quinn Curio is being accused of in this video. Absolutely disgusting.
It makes the whole "you guys are actually a bunch of bullies" thing a little too on the nose.
That's not a hyperbole, but whatever.
You know, cause like, at least you know where you stand with a blood letter. You can scrapbook a blood letter.
I bet one of the first timestamps Liam clicked on for this video was the one with the angry face emoji, because that's exactly how he felt going into this video. In fact, most of the clips he has used were from this part of the video. Really makes you think.
If the doctors can unliquefy your torso, I'd love to see you at the picnic. No, really, but can you bring potato salad if you come? I hate peeling all those potatoes.
Oh, that's right, you did. But hey, if there's one thing about you, Quinn, you're consistently inconsistent.
How is she being inconsistent? If anything, the criticisms that you have against her are inconsistent. You went from pointing out how much of a dense lunatic she is for not differentiating hyperbolic language from an actual point, to criticizing her for thinking hyperbolic languages, like she's criticizing the right opinion. What's up with that? You know, coincidentally enough, all of the clips of Quinn using hyperbolic language all contain statements and points being delivered, just like the right opinion. The last one in particular was pointing out how dishonest storytime animators are when they say that they don't date the people they are critiquing, and she's using a hypothetical example of what it sounds like. Again, although it's hyperbolic, it still carries meaning, just like when the right opinion supposedly joked about storytime animators being reminiscent of the Sanford cult.
Storytime critics deeply believe the members of the community haven't earned their success, and that their genre itself is stupid. The criticism is not coming from just anyone, it's coming from cynical, critical peeps who take criticism with the utmost seriousness. They typically see very little value in what a lot of the Storytime channels make and are rarely entertained by them.
I like how these clips are cut almost perfectly to avoid the overall context revolving a much broader point. Pretty sus, I might say. The first clip was her bringing up a point that she would get to later in the video, and that is they mostly believe that storytime animators are wrongfully earning success, because they view them as either being lazy or essentially being astroturfed by the algorithm for publishing in a much faster rate, while other animators are being left on the sideline. The second clip is a response to the right opinion saying that the storytime animation community is receiving large sums of criticism, where Quinn pointed out that the only people criticizing the people are merely just people from the more cynical side of the commentary community, people who view themselves as the arbiters of criticism that must be listened to by everyone, yet have very little interest in the storytime genre anyway. Alright pal, let's see what you have to say.
This is another weakness of yours, Quinn. You constantly have to try to put commentary down any way you can, and a big way you do that, you generalize them. You act as if they're nothing but mean, malicious edgelords, like they have nothing to say, they have no value, no input.
Really? Here you had a few points that Quinn Curio had that you could have analyzed and took apart, and all you can ever do is just boil it down to her unfairly putting the commentary community down. Damn, so much for relying solely on emotional appeal, wouldn't you say?
No, Quinn, you're hearing what you want to hear. You're not listening to them.
Oh, that's rich. You're the one glossing over points in Quinn Curio's video that completely contradicts your narrative that she is an oversensitive baby who shits her diapers every day.
You're trying to check them off like a list. Put them in whatever category of bad, malicious you personally want to, so you don't have to engage. You can just make assumptions. What you're doing here is completely idiotic. Just like it'd be stupid of me to generalize storytime animators. If I said that they're not real animators, they're lazy, their animation sucks, their character design sucks, they regurgitate the same stories, the same talking points over and over again, that isn't making a point. That isn't engaging the conversation. It's writing off an entire community of people. It's lazy, pathetic criticism. And the fact that this is all you think commentary is, Quinn, speaks a hell of a lot of you.
Well, damn Lime, you know what? You may have a point there, if Quinn Curio actually said what you accused her of saying. Alright, let's rewind the clock for a moment and look back on what she actually said in these two clips that are totally not completely isolated from the original context.
Most Storytime critics deeply believe the members of the community haven't earned their success, and that their genre itself is stupid. The criticism is not coming from just anyone, it's coming from cynical, critical peeps who take criticism with the utmost seriousness. They typically see very little value in what a lot of the Storytime channels make and are rarely entertained by them.
Pay attention to the language Quinn is using in the clips you used as an example. Yeah, nowhere in this part of the video did Quinn say that every single commentary YouTuber are like the things she mentioned. In fact, if we use our mighty semantic detective work we can actually hear her saying most and typically, words that indicate that Quinn is open to the idea that there are outliers to the main thing she was talking about. You'd make an excellent point if she explicitly said that every single commentary channel believes that the genre is stupid, and are rarely entertained by them, but she didn't say that. Selective hearing is par for the course of having a predetermined narrative about another individual, something you accused Quinn of having.
Am I being do all or nothing?
Yes, because your argumentation is awful, your commentary is lazy. You rely on your own biased thoughts, your presumptions, your generalizations.
Jesus Christ, this guy is going for the jugular on this one, isn't he? You literally just took an isolated except asking a rhetorical question that is barely 2 seconds long, not even giving it time to breathe, and you couldn't have the self-discipline of waiting but fling a bunch of unsubstantiated ad hominems and potshots that you could think on top of your head. You wanna know what this part of the video reminds me of? That one YouTuber with 100 billion subscribers who would interrupt this one feminist that I was told to hate.
So, how to be a feminist?
Aye, of course, that is how Saint Sarkeesian would start off a speech, isn't it? Talking about herself. Oh, don't mind all those other people there, Anita. You just go ahead and make everyone listen to you talk about your favourite topic, yourself. And you know what? I'm sure they will. Look at this hive mind. Just over half of whom are sitting in a similar way, listening with rapt attention as their god empress tells them what they're allowed to think today. Oh, what's this, Anita? You had to do something. You really despise the idea that women can have free agency, don't you? Was it the patriarchy that made you do this unspecified action? I must have missed that meeting. Maybe I was off oppressing everyone by being a straight white male. So, go on, Anita. What was it that the evil patriarchy made you do?
Learn.
Oh, you had to learn. Well, how awful for you. I guess it must be difficult for a feminist. Learning things must be some alien concept for you. How evil of men to literally force you to learn something. Oh, but don't let me interrupt you, Anita. Go on. What did you simply have to learn about?
How to be a feminist.
Ah, yes. There we go. Straight from the horse's mouth. Feminism is unnatural.
Seriously, that's basically the same energy of argumentation you're engaging in. Only thing missing is desperately flinging a bunch of accusations you could think on top of your head in one interjection. Mind you, the claims you have made so far in this interjection aren't even things you went over in the video. All you did so far in the video was point out that she overlooked some stupid Discord drama. She took a joke that wasn't even a joke anyway too seriously, and she did whatever it took to make the commentary community look as bad as possible. All of these claims are false. Yeah, if you're going to make these really dumb and baseless claims here, you could at least went over her video to try to prove your point, not find an isolated clip asking a rhetorical question that has nothing to do with what you're accusing her of.
Offer any nuance to the discussion. You ignore examples that don't fit your narrative because you're inherently biased.
Well, like you're one to talk, you're the one who ignored the part of her video where she said that she doesn't mind insults in critical videos. I know you've watched that part because you used clips literally 5 seconds before she said it. You also ignored the part of the video where she called the Storytime animator's response to criticism mean and typically dismissive. You're not stupid. You've known about these clips from the very beginning, but all of these clips go against your narrative. But you neatly and carefully surgically removed those parts from the video. If I were you, I wouldn't go around saying other people are ignoring examples that don't fit their narrative, when you're the one doing the same thing.
You are, without a shadow of a doubt, a disingenuous hypocrite.
Refer to my previous statement.
And you know what's the tragic thing about all of this, Quinn? The few good points you have in your video is just buried.
Good points, huh? Alright champ, since you are the pinnacle of being a certified fair and well-balanced noodle, I'd love to know what good points you think she has made in the video. Maybe talk about what she said about soft penis when he did that abhorrent video about Jaden's eating disorder for example, or when she talked about how oh my god it's James basically a-logged and doxed Spetty, among other things. I know you're aware of this. You mentioned one of the 2 incidents in your little bath teen video, so it would be nice if you mentioned them in this really fair and well-balanced video. Well, I'm listening.
It's buried underneath smug, mediocre commentary, god-awful points in a video that, at its very core, is fundamentally flawed.
Geez Lime, those are some spanking accusations you got going on over here. If only you elaborated when you got the chance.
How many therapists, psychiatrists, or counselors of any sort would look at a person saying, I want to make better videos, and say, well, you're in luck because people on the internet make videos about you. I think you should watch those videos and take them very seriously.
Whatever a therapist's opinion about online content, that's completely and utterly irrelevant. Their line of work is so far removed from online content creation that this is just ridiculous.
You're right, Lime. This is fucking ridiculous. This point right here is ridiculous. She isn't saying you must ask a therapist or counselor about their opinions in content creation. She's obviously talking about talking to a counselor about your mental health in regards to your YouTube career, because that's what a counselor or therapist is best suited to do. The reason she used this as a segue to her final thoughts would be obvious to anyone who has seen an hour worth of Quinn's video, especially when considering all of the toxic things that would usually happen when critics, people like Daftina, Jerky Tom and others, criticize other storytime animators. What kind of point is this? This is like if someone said that they sprayed their ankle while skateboarding, and they need to be carried away in an ambulance to fix their sprayed ankle. I then say to the person, yeah, well, the doctor's line of work is so far removed from your skateboarding activities, so their opinion is completely and utterly irrelevant. Yes, Lime, you may be right, they might not be a skateboarder themselves, but a doctor is there to fix a sprayed ankle from a skateboard ring, similar to how a therapist is there for a storytime animator if they need someone to talk to.
And let's say they do agree with you. So what, do you just block out criticism, even if it's good criticism? Do you make an echo chamber?
No, that's not what she's saying, sorry. Nowhere in her video did she even say or suggest that you should block out criticism or live in your own little echo chamber, not even once. Yeah, we'll get back to that in a moment, but in the meantime, this is a perfect example of interpreting her statements or points in the most uncharitable ways you could imagine.
Criticism is going to happen on the internet. It's going to happen when you're any kind of public figure, when you're any kind of content creator. It's an inevitability.
No, really. Criticism on the internet is inevitable, and no one is immune from criticism. Whoa, golly gee willikers, Mr. Lime Talks, I didn't fucking know that. Thank you for giving me this very important piece of information. I thought I was completely invincible from criticism. I bet Quinn Curio is just astonished just from you telling her that alone. Wait, what the fuck am I saying? Of course she fucking isn't. What the fuck are you talking about? This is some serious low IQ shit. You honestly think she made an hour-long video in storytime animation critiques, and throughout the process of putting the effort of analyzing the many flaws of the community she has not realized that criticism in the internet is inevitable? Do you honestly believe that? If that's the case, I'm about to let you in a little secret, a secret confidential only to the international Jewish cabal. You ready? She already knows that. In fact, if you actually went through her entire video, and not just click in the timestamp showing a big ol' angry face, she addressed criticism and meanness as just another day in the internet. She already understands that criticism is just part for the core of being a citizen of the internet, for lack of a better term. So what's your point?
Even if you want to create an echo chamber, even if you want to bury your head in the sand, even if you want to have nothing but a collective circle jerk singing Kumbaya, it's still going to happen. There's no point in ignoring this. So that entire point, Quinn, is mute. Whether or not you want to face it, you have to. It's an inevitability.
Didn't Quinn Curio literally say in the beginning of the video that she is a big fan of criticism on the internet? Strange, it's like a burning memory I have, almost like a point that would be relevant later on in the video. Skipping the rest of the interjection, Lime is just shoehorning a point that he already made concerning an aspect of the internet that Quinn is already aware about anyway. It's literally in the first part of the video, spoiler alert.
The Storytime YouTubers are sentient. They can think about their own work. They can have conversations with people we are not there for. They are capable of creating small groups of artists for critique circles in private if their friends go too soft on them. They can learn things by watching videos that aren't even about them. Listen, if you make things online, your mental health and self-confidence are so much more precious than this and so much more vital to improving and growing and just having the energy to do things. The average person does not stagnate because of narcissism and their inability to take criticism. They stagnate because of crippling self-doubt, which leads to having no energy to accelerate change, which leads to guilt, which leads to self-hatred and more self-doubt.
Yeah, they can do all that. They can make their inner circles. They can make their groups. They can have whatever they want to do. That's irrelevant, Quinn. They can have all that, and they can only listen to that if they want. That's fine. But Quinn, what you're cowardly trying to do here, and what you won't admit, because you do this constantly throughout your video, you won't just outright say it, you allude to it. What you're saying here is they have other means of getting criticism. They don't need critics. They don't need commentary channels. That doesn't matter, Quinn, because it doesn't matter how you'd like criticism. Any critic, any commentary channel, any reviewer, anyone who wants to criticize someone else, or anything else, they have the right to do that.
She never said they didn't. In fact, Quinn said something completely different from what you're claiming she said. Let's see what she has to say about it.
If you're like me, it's fun to analyze and critique things. In fact, my love of criticism is only rivaled by my love of extremely long video essays. So when I see the final runtime of this video, I will lick the screen. And maybe you're not okay with that, but I feel no shame. Timestamps below. When you're so critical, sometimes people don't understand you. They think you're negative or trying to ruin things, especially if you're a YouTuber, but I like YouTubers that do this. Which is why when I discovered the YouTube animated storytime community, I immediately discovered the community underneath these people, the channels that criticize them. And I discovered these channels were getting a rough deal from fans of the Storytime channels. And I felt bad for them because I can identify with this. They don't deserve to get comments telling them to kill themselves from angry fans for criticizing their favorite YouTuber. That being said, enjoy this criticism of criticism, where I use the Storytime community critics to analyze the art of criticism that ignores the priorities of its subject, doesn't respect boundaries with accessible YouTubers, and its distorted view on self-improvement and feelings.
Here you can see that Quinn said literally in the beginning of the video that she doesn't have a problem with analytical and critical videos. In fact, she even went so far and said that she is into this sort of content. This whole clip is right there crystal clear. I know you've watched that part of the video since it's literally in the beginning, but you still choose to hubristically mansplain her about how people have the right to criticize things, as if that part of the video simply did not exist, almost, as if she hasn't made it clear that she is into that sort of content.
Your feelings do not trump their desire to create. They are not obligated to atone to your sensibilities, to your emotions, and your feelings on the matter are not universal, just like their criticism is not universal. This is all give and take. You can choose to take it however you like. You can think their criticism is good, you can think it's shit, you can accept it, you can ignore it, you can do whatever you like with it.
You know what, Liam? I agree with you. Quinn Curio also agrees with you. In her video, she pointed out how some of these critics believe that the Storytime animators must receive and accept their criticism, and countered this notion by saying that the Storytime animators shouldn't be publicly lynched on the streets if they wish to get their criticism elsewhere, and insinuating otherwise is destructive and unhealthy to the person you are supposed to help. It seems that you're relatively moderate when it comes to Storytime animators choosing whether or not they receive any criticism, but there are a lot of YouTubers who won't take it well if a Storytime animator doesn't like their criticism, or prefers to get their criticism from someone else. No matter how much you try to ignore or hand-wave them away, they exist.
And it's not just going to disappear because you say, oh well, they have other means. Fine, have your other means. You can have whatever means you like. Quinn, you're passive aggressive. Oh, they're getting their criticisms elsewhere. They're getting their advice elsewhere. You're not needed. No. No, Quinn, that's not how this works.
Again, reading Quinn's point in the worst and most uncharitable ways you can imagine. Quinn said that Storytime animators shouldn't be condemned to mediocrity just because they wish to get their criticisms elsewhere. This goes back to the statement she made near the beginning about how critics think Storytime animators must validate their criticism, otherwise they will be condemned to mediocrity and stagnation like the narcissistic megalomaniacs they are, and wraps everything up by saying that the reason many of them are stagnating because of the critics is because of crippling self-doubt. You, on the other hand, being so fucking fair and well-balanced you are, interpret her as saying, oh, they have other means of getting criticism, so therefore you are not allowed to criticize them at all. She never said any of those things, and all of that ignores the whole point she has made that I just mentioned.
You, me, anyone in commentary, anyone in Storytime, anyone on the internet. We are not the arbiters of how criticism is distributed, of what we want to hear and what we like to hear. As soon as you put anything out there publicly, you have lost that right. You've lost the right of, oh, I want criticism like this. I want to control criticism like this. No, Quinn, no, that's not how this works.
Okay, when the fuck did Quinn ever say that Storytime animators should control criticism? You see, this is what I mean by interpreting Quinn's point in the worst ways imaginable. She never said anything about controlling criticism whatsoever. She does, however, offer suggestions and criticisms on how the criticism is distributed, but I guess it's easier to label this as controlling criticism. Funny how that works. You can criticize everything and anything you want. Nothing is off limits or immune to criticism. But as soon as you criticize criticism itself, you will immediately be ass blasted by everyone around you. How dare you criticize our sacred cause? This idea of her trying to control criticism is flimsy at best. I can literally replace the word criticism with Storytime animators, and the point would hold up just as well. Oh, I want Storytime animation like this. I want to control Storytime animators like this. No, Daft, no, that's not how it works. You can literally use this in anything really, and it almost goes to show that you are unwilling to let Storytime critics have their criticism criticized, something they accuse Storytime animators of doing.
If you want that, then just work in private. Distribute your work privately. You don't understand the fundamental basics of online creation, of being a content creator. You're too wrapped up in your own sensibilities and views, how you think things should be, your personal perception. And to your point of stagnation, Quinn, this is a huge problem you have. It's either all or nothing with you. It's either black or white. The balance is important because yes, both things can happen. Both things can cause stagnation. People constantly putting down someone, yeah, that's going to destroy their confidence. It's going to make them hesitant to create. But the fact that you even try to argue that people don't stagnate because of ego, narcissism, their inability to take criticism, yes, they absolutely do.
She said that the average person doesn't stagnate because of ego and narcissism. Average person. Semantics are important, because knowing what the average person is like can give us a clear understanding of why these Storytime animators aren't validating the criticism, as many of them would like them to. Average person can indicate that there are certain outliers to the type of person she's talking about. There may be certain not-so-average storytime animators that are dismissive towards criticism, because they are narcissists, but that's not important when considering the general consensus. I mean, given the type of shit that critics would pump out back then, would you blame them? Wouldn't you agree that the average person would eventually snap when they are constantly being accused of faking an eating disorder, being told they are fat, doxing their school address, telling them to stop making videos altogether, etc.? I most certainly would, and honestly Quinn didn't go far enough when criticizing Daft in particular, but I digress. You see, the white man in a white background is a quiet and peaceful man, and you can push the white man only so far, until you get a reaction the likes of which has never been seen before.
You're so stuck in your own personal narrative that you can't give an inch, Quinn. You just can't be fair about this. And all your presumptions and generalizations about commentary and how they don't like and don't understand storytime animation. Quinn, you don't get commentary, you don't understand it, you don't understand its purpose. Because to you, all you see is bullying, all you see is cruelness and meanness.
Accuses Quinn of making generalizations. Immediately proceeds to generalize Quinn's criticism, saying that all she sees is bullying and cruelty. So much for consistency there, Liam.
You only want to look at the bad side of it, you can't look at the good side, because you're just playing into your own biased thoughts. Say whatever you want about me, I have always been fair when it comes to commentary and story time. I recognise the talented people in both communities, the qualities of both, and the good they do, just as I recognise that there are bad actors in both communities.
You know, whenever I hear people gloat about how unbiased and charitable they are, it always comes from people who are the complete fucking opposite, and there is no better example right here. Liam has spent the first 10 minutes of the video taking Quinn completely out of context, couldn't keep his ad hominem dick in his pants, interpreting Quinn in the worst possible ways you could imagine, and scheming through her video trying to find little gotchas just to prove that she is a moral grandstanding hypocrite, not taking into account the nuance and context behind them. You call that charitable? You call that unbiased?
But you will not acknowledge this, Quinn, because in your eyes all this amounts to is just, oh, the storytime animators are poor innocent victims of the cruelty of commentary. And that is the fundamental flaw in your video, Quinn. It's built on a lie.
No, not a lie, buddy. Storytime critics in general have caused the most damage compared to the storytime animators that they've criticized. The worst they've done was steal Daft Pina's video just to make fun of it as a reaction towards Daft Pina's actions against them. Not comparable, no middle ground, no happy funny enlightened centrist moment. The tides were overwhelmingly turning against the critics of storytime animators. That concludes one part of the video. Time for a break. And welcome back. How's everyone doing? Alright, now that we covered the first half of the video, the next half we are going to be doing is of Liam responding to Quinn Curio's Discord message criticizing one of his videos in Storytime Animators, one concerning Storytime Assistant Animators, and the other about how the odd ones outblocked him, among other things. Let's continue. Looks like someone has a fancy new thought right there. You forgot to change the text.
Now in present day, I'd like to say that Curio has changed, but she clearly hasn't.
Wait, what? You'd like to say that Quinn has changed, but she clearly hasn't. Well, which is it then? Did she change, or did she not?
Going over a conversation I had with Curio on her public Discord server, she took issue with my two videos, the Storytime Assistant Animators and the Odd Ones Outblocked Me. I had linked the video in the self-promotion section of the Discord server. For anyone who doesn't know, a lot of Discord servers have this, essentially just a way of you putting out your work, whether it be on YouTube or TikTok, Twitter, whatever the case may be.
Glad to see that Liam Talks is taking the time to give an introduction about what a self-promotion channel in Discord is. I'm honestly pretty happy that this video is catered to normal people and not pedophiles.
Now I'm going to read off word for word what she had said to me and give a rebuttal towards her arguments. So here we have it, but let's zoom up for more clarity. Where she says, if I had to take a guess, I would say you were blocked for spamming a bunch of strangers links to your video.
Alright, time to use this part of the video to give a little backstory about what happened. As established earlier, Liam made a video in the subject matter of Storytime Assistant Animators, which is a video in which he explains his thoughts on, well, Storytime Assistant Animators. His main point is that assistant animators need to move on from working for these storytime YouTubers all the time, if they were to reach their full potential, and neglecting on doing so will basically just leave them in a state where they are just being overly dependent in them for clout. Lime usually does this thing on Twitter, where he randomly tags multiple people that are mentioned in one of his videos, even if the person was mentioned only once in the video. When Lime tagged the odd ones out on Twitter, he blocked him, probably because he saw that Lime indiscriminately tagged a bunch of other YouTubers and wanted no part in it. Lime then made a video about why the odd ones out blocked him, and that's where Quinn Curio responds. Now that I got that out of the way, let's go.
First of all, Quinn, it wasn't links, it was one link to one specific video. This isn't an unusual thing. I do this with every single person I make a video about, whether it's positive or negative.
Well, there you go. That's what Quinn Curio was talking about. You tag multiple fucking people on Twitter to get their attention so that they watch your goddamn videos. She was referring to the multiple instances where you would tag random strangers to watch your videos you made in them. Especially in this example that she was able to screenshot. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, look how many people are being tagged here. James doesn't even need to go on your Twitter account and look into your case. That screenshot alone could very much indicate that you're just spamming multiple people for clout. Yeah, if you're going to be spamming a bunch of tags like that, a lot of normal people, especially James, are gonna think you're some clout-chasing weirdo, equivalent to these sub-for-sub channels that would usually pop up back in the day.
And spamming? No, I don't consider it spamming. If you do, then that's fine.
Well, that's the thing. Just because you don't personally think it's spamming, doesn't mean other people are going to think the same way. And that's important to note, especially when you are going to tag that many people online. They don't know your intentions. For all we know, they could as well call it spamming as well. If Quinn Curio and James thought that it was spamming, who's to say that a handful of other people that you've tagged wouldn't think the same way as well?
I'm not tagging people multiple times.
Fortunately, Quinn did not say that you tagged someone multiple times in this paragraph, so you're good.
Yes, I tagged a good few people whom I was directly talking about in a YouTube video.
Well, Lime, you're not bullshitting.
I'll tag them on Twitter. I'd like to give them the chance. If they want to see it, they can. And if they're not interested, then fine, just ignore it. To me, I think it's far more gracious and fair to let people know what you're talking about. Be upfront with them. I'm not sure why you bring up strangers as if that has any relevance. I'm sorry, Quinn, is there some arbitrary rule on the internet where you have to be friends with people whom you tag?
Well, no, you don't have to be friends with the people you tag necessarily. However, it is recommended that you don't tag random strangers in the internet, especially to this extent, because then a lot of people are going to think that's weird. This isn't just me and Quinn Curio talking. A lot of people have this really cursed satanic dark magic that they possess. It's called having social skills. Might wanna look that one up.
Last I checked, Quinn, this isn't a country club. This is social media. How close I am to a person whom I tag is irrelevant. All this amounts to is, I feel, my opinion, my sensibilities. I don't care about your sensibilities, Quinn.
Where the hell did this feels over reals mantra come from in the conversation? Quinn was barely making any feels arguments. She was giving you a reason why she thought the odd ones out may have blocked you based off what she saw when looking into your situation. Alright, if you don't already understand, let's play a game for a minute. Pretend you're Quinn Curio, and Quinn Curio is Lime Talks, okay? Alright, if you found out that the odd ones out blocked Quinn Curio, and Quinn has spammed dozens of tags from various different storytime animators on Twitter trying to get other people to watch her video, wouldn't you also believe this amount of spamming may be the reason why the odd ones out may have blocked her? Not to mention, even ignoring the amount of people that you've tagged, some people just plain don't want to be bothered in Twitter. They don't want to be tagged. I had to deal with that myself. I tagged Sean Head this one time, because I found a new girl that looks exactly like her. She blocked me, because I tagged her on Twitter. Some people on Twitter don't like to be tagged Lime. That's just the way it is.
Moving on to the next part. In the Storytime Assistant Animators, the video, you guessed you were blocked. For publishing, you make a strange statement about a minute and a half in that the time they spent working for someone else is time not spent pushing themselves further and taking stock in who they are. You say the more you spend as an extension of someone else, the less you develop as yourself. Then you speculate they may stick with them because the big animator has clout. I don't know what you mean by strange. Yes, I said that in the video, because everything I said in the video, that's how I feel about it.
Damn, when you said you're going to read word for word her paragraphs, you weren't kidding. Not only is Lime responding to Quinn's arguments, but he's literally responding to her quoting from his fucking video. Holy mackerel.
It's an opinion I hold, and this isn't even specifically about Jaden and James and their animators. I feel this way about any animator who's working under another animator, anyone who's working under anyone in any position. Because I personally, myself, I think the goal should always be to move forward, to get higher in better positions. And yes, in terms of skill and talent, I think you're going to stagnate if you stick in the same position.
Cool. You believe people should always strive to move forward, especially these animators. I personally agree with you. That's a completely fine opinion to have. There are plenty of animators that do this, and that will be important later on in the video, by the way. Unfortunately, that's not the problem Quinn Curio has with your video. She doesn't particularly have a problem with you saying that these storytime animators should always strive to move forward. She has a problem with your implications. She has a problem with your notion that continuing to work with these storytime animators will just make them end up spinning their wheels, and will impede their growth in their animation career. That's the problem Quinn has with your video. Sure, we can have a whole song and dance number about all the other shit you've said in the video that are completely irrelevant to what Quinn Curio was talking about, but that completely ignores the main reason why Quinn has a problem with your video. You're just tiptoeing around it, not even actually delving into the meat of the issue at hand.
I'm not sure why you immediately go to clout. I never even say the word clout in the video.
Actually, you did say clout. Just listen to this.
The more you spend as an extension of someone else, the less you develop as yourself. And look, I understand the clout of it, the fame of it, whatever you want to call it, but you can't use that or rely on that as though it will automatically boost you. You have to take priority in who you truly are and build upon that.
I just exposed you XDDDDDDDDDG. Alright, I'm well aware that you corrected your mistake later on, but this was a pretty poor decision to deny that you said clout, not only because it's not true, but this could have been a point where you could have some semblance of defense that could somewhat be valid. You could have built upon your point even further, saying something along the lines of you can't use clout from other bigger YouTubers as a reliable source for your growth, because at the end of the day, you alone should decide your path in setting course your growth of your career in terms of skills and notoriety. Sure, it doesn't help your case against Quinn Curio's critique against you. It's still based on a premise that's not grounded in reality. You brought up that there are plenty of YouTubers who work for these storytime animators that already have a career of their own, and many of them are really popular YouTubers. However, at least it's better and more honest than completely denying it exists, because then it would give you the wiggle room of elaborating even further rather than hand-waving it away.
And I bring up a multitude of reasons why they'd stick with a big animator. Seems to me, Quinn, you just heard of my video what you wanted to hear, for wanting financial security, because it's good pay and it's a consistent income. Another one being experience. You can learn a lot from a big animator who's already made it.
Okay, so what the fuck's your point? What does this have anything to do with what Quinn has a problem with in your video? Quinn Curio, you said that I said that they are doing it for clout? Well, hate to break it to you Quinn, but I said that they also do it for acquiring skills, financial benefits, etc. Okay, so, how does that make Quinn's argument any weaker? This is another reason why you shouldn't deny that you said clout, because the reason she brought it up was because this links to the main idea that your video was trying to convey. It's basically the golden goose of your video. If you're not building yourself, and subsequently build yourself for an audience and lights, or having the storytime animator pass the torch to you, you will just be spending your life needlessly spinning your wheels rather than strive to have a career of your own. You bringing up experience or wealth is completely irrelevant, when the main idea is how you believe they should build themselves to a more independent person in the animation field, and practically build their own YouTube career. This isn't even a known. You're not debunking her just because you say that you said that there is more to it than just clout, because the main idea is what Quinn is tackling.
What you're trying to dismiss and diminish is this. Yes, I bring up the fact that working for a big, popular animator can be beneficial to you, absolutely. Whether it be it brings more notoriety to you, it can help big time with your resume. But hey, I guess try to spin it to a negative, right Quinn? Just try to make it be about, oh, clout, that's all it is, clout. I give plenty of reasons and I explain in depth. If all you can take from that is negative, then that's your problem. When it was nothing but nice, nothing but respectful.
You hear that guys? The video is nice and respectful, because Liam said so. Nope, doesn't work like that Liam. You have to show it in your actions.
You then say, not all artists want clout and their name in lights. Some just want to make art and get paid. Many knew this when they went in for schooling in the arts. A completely mute point, Quinn. Did you even watch the video? You're on the assumption that all I said in the video was just, oh, they're gonna stick with these big animators for clout.
You're right Liam, you didn't only say clout. However, as stated earlier, that's not relevant, because all of that shit isn't the main idea of the video that Quinn has a problem with. The main topic you were discussing is how these YouTubers should move on to bigger things rather than working for a storytime animator all the time, because then they will just be wasting time going around in circles rather than building up to their full potential. In other words, starting up their own YouTube channel, and making videos that will reach 1 million hits on YouTube. Clout.
You then say you're projecting the desire for having clout and having a big channel onto strangers who animate for YouTubers. This is the critical error of your video. Oh, I'm projecting? That's pretty rich, Quinn. Considering how overly neurotic you acted towards this video, how offended you got on the behalf of others for a harmless video that was nothing but nice, nothing but respectful.
Okay, now we're just mixing up the vaguely gestured, imagined hypocrisies. You were saying how rich it is that Quinn said that you were projecting, and then you tried to counter this by completely bringing up something else that has nothing to do with projection. Huh? And no, just saying it's nice and respectful doesn't make it nice and respectful. It's the actions in the video that determines whether or not it's nice and respectful.
So no, Quinn, this isn't the critical error of my video.
What's that? Was that a blatant dismissal of criticism I hear?
This is the critical error of your video.
No, it's not. It's not the critical error of my video. Shut up. Absolutely childish, I say.
Quinn, do you want an example of an actual critical error? Getting offended on the behalf of others, completely misinterpreting and misunderstanding a video, acting completely neurotic and taking it in the worst way possible, in the most negative way you can imagine.
Yeah, Quinn Curio, you are acting completely neurotic and irrational right now. Don't know about you guys, but if I were to have someone to tell me who's being neurotic and irrational, it better be from a guy who acts like this. A guy who gets this fucking defensive over Quinn Curio casually giving out her criticism in the video in regards to why someone else blocked him, and will go on a spielfest demonizing that person's character. Clearly, that person would be the lesser of the crazies. And Quinn Curio is taking your video in the worst ways possible, while ignoring and misunderstanding your video, you say? Yeah, because you treated her video in Storytime Animation Critics so well, you didn't misconstrue and take what she said in the worst ways possible at all. Oh no, you were a very fair and well-balanced noodle.
See, Quinn, I can make objective arguments. All you can do is make various amounts of I feel my feeling. Quinn, I don't care about how hard you're clutching your pearls.
Where the hell did she ever make any feels over reals arguments in this part of the conversation? All she did in that statement that you're responding to was just her critiquing the video, saying that you probably shouldn't project the desire of living for a big audience, because not everyone necessarily has that goal in mind. Sounds simple enough. Nowhere in that exchange did she have her frivolous emotions cloud her judgment when analyzing your video. If anything, the only person who's making feels arguments in this situation is you, Liam. You're the one getting super fucking defensive over someone simply pointing out the flaws of your video, and as if the copium levels weren't enough for you, you can't even make a case in favor of your video that doesn't involve crafting a fucking caricature of her. In fact, that's one thing that sets you apart from Quinn. It's not enough that Quinn simply has a problem with your video. Oh no, you need to haphazardly throw all the stereotypes and bad militias onto her. Now she's an over-emotional, frivolous, crying, whining, sanctimonious, hyperventilating, thin-skinned SJW nuffer fucking faggot who shits her diapers every day, who is only using feels over reals to make an argument. You shoehorning the idea that Quinn is currently making I feel arguments is a perfect example of this. You are arbitrarily shoehorning that caricature of her at every given turn to where you see fit, even when it simply doesn't belong in that part of the exchange. It's nauseating.
I gave my opinion in a completely respectful manner. If you or anyone else was offended by that, then move on. If you don't like my opinion and you don't like the fact that I said, I think there comes a point where you should always move forward once you've reached that limit, and that you shouldn't stay in the same position forever. I never claimed this was fact in the video. I outright say in the video, it's my opinion, and that's all there is to that video. If you agree, fine. If you disagree, fine.
This is something that you'll see Liam do throughout the rest of this exchange. He's going to use the opinion card as a means of defending the video, which is a logical fallacy. This is a complete nothing burger of an argument. Not only is it a thought-terminating cliche that is only used by people who don't know how to formulate a defense for their arguments, but also because I can just use this argument in favor of Quinn Curio, and it would hold up just as well. Well, Liam, you know what? I agree, you have the right to your opinion. But here's my question, doesn't Quinn Curio have the right to her opinion, in your opinion? That's not making a convincing argument, that's just deflecting any conversation and discussion concerning your video. What the hell, Liam? I thought you were a discussions channel.
You then said doing a job you like for good money is not spinning your wheels just because you're not living your life with an audience. Okay, Nancy Drew, since you keep on missing this point, I don't know how to get it through your thick skull.
This is some serious schizo shit right here. Liam, you're responding to the message, not talking to it. You're acting like she's able to hear you through this message. You say that she is missing the point of your video, and when she continues to quote-unquote miss the point of your video, your response is of you telling her that she can't get it through her thick skull. Quinn wrote all of this in one swing, whatever your responses was after Quinn Curio was done with her message.
I didn't just use an example of, oh, it's because they're popular, and you'd notice had you had actually watched my video without the stick up your arse. You're just blatantly lying here, Quinn, and I can bring up the clip right now. Say someone like Pivots, for example, he's shown his worth and his talent, but to reach his full potential, he's got to move on. Otherwise, the alternative is just to spin your wheels going around in circles. This is how disingenuous you are, Quinn. You literally take a quote from my video, in which I'm specifically talking about skill and talent, and you're trying to equate it to me talking about clout and fame. Pathetic, Quinn. Absolutely pathetic.
You can't be serious. Okay, it's official. You're a fucking idiot, Liam. You accuse Quinn of lying about the context behind the spinning your wheels quote, saying that it was merely just talking about skills and talent, and then you play a clip that plays exactly in favor of what Quinn Curio was talking about. Like, how fucking dumb do you have to be? You just played a clip where you were talking about how Pivots needs to move on from working for Storytime animators. You just proved Quinn Curio right with your own fucking clip that you've shown. The reason why you mentioned skills and talent in that clip was when you were giving examples in how people like Pivots can utilize them for their own YouTube career, because as it turns out, Liam, Storytime assistant animators pursuing to go on and make a career for themselves is the main idea of your video, which is something that I talked about earlier. You should know this more than anyone else. You literally made the video exploring the possibility in how this could be done, but all you could ever do is depend in plausible deniability in the face of Quinn Curio's critique, when you're not drawing the opinion card, but you're not even good at doing that, since your example played exactly in the hands of Quinn Curio's interpretation of your video. Also, while we are talking about pivots, one of Jaden's assistant animators, the Pivots XXE, has been doing animation as far back as early 2011, and has accumulated over 100,000 subscribers. Sure, it may not be as much compared to Jaden Animations or The Odd Ones Out, among other animation channels, but taking everything into account, I think he's doing just fine. But let's expand this a little further, because I want to make a point about this. Now that we've established that people like Pivots have relatively massive channels, and possibly accumulated even more subscribers and views than Pivots would ever have, let's establish that this is the case. I mean, why wouldn't they be? Most of them gain significant traction just from working with other YouTubers alone. If you want them to quote-unquote reach their full potential according to you, taking everything that I mentioned concerning Pivots gaining millions of views on his most popular video, and Pivots sitting atop his 100k subscriber penthouse into account, what's left on the agenda? Leaving the storytime animators? This is an inevitable conclusion to what you view as best for these assistant animators, if we take all of that into account. While I am sure that you don't have any ill will towards these storytime animators, I am perfectly fine with you wanting these assistant animators to focus more on solo work so they can utilize it to whatever advantage that will inevitably get them big, so to speak. However, this video contains a lot of bad implications such as these, and that's why Quinn Curio is calling it into question.
The fact that you have to blatantly lie. So Quinn, I would like to know though, are you a deceptive coward, or are you just stupid?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Very classy and mature of you, Lime. You also couldn't find another picture of Quinn Curio other than the thumbnail that you have of her.
You then say it's weird going back and watching the video you posted here because you omitted the underhanded way your first video was insulting and intrusive, concerned trolling. No, I didn't omit anything, Quinn, because it wasn't trolling, it wasn't intrusive. This is all public knowledge. I didn't go into detail about their personal life. I gave my opinion about how I don't think you should stay in the same position forever. No, Quinn, there's nothing underhanded. There was nothing omitted.
If I just say that there wasn't anything omitted or underhanded, then that automatically makes it true, right? Well, unfortunately for Lime, that's not how it works. The reason why she said this was because you completely misunderstood the reasons as to why The Odd Ones Out may have blocked you because of that video alone, like how you're literally reaching out to the staff of these animators, tagging them, so that they will watch your video on how they should basically stop working for these storytime animators, for example. Just like what you're doing here, you don't understand how that can be intrusive to many people, and you'd rather be a petulant child and dismiss anything that would suggest this, when you probably shouldn't do that, because what, if this shit happens again? I'm telling you, one of these days, when you're just indiscriminately tagging so many people on Twitter because of a video you did in them, one of the people you tagged won't take your intentions very well. They may block you or even report your account for spamming, among other things that are against the terms of service. You can say whatever you like about that notion, you may even say that's a petty thing to do, but at the end of the day, social skills are the waters in which we swim, and the situation is no different here.
What you're saying, Quinn, in a roundabout way was that James was justified in blocking me because of the first video. What you are is offended because I didn't validate your personal biased thoughts. See, Quinn, just like James, you're mad because I didn't atone to your sensibilities. But of course I don't expect any deep thoughts and nuance from you, Quinn. After all, you're so dense that you actually used "they're comparing them to the Sanford cult from Hot Fuzz" as an actual legitimate point against the right opinion.
Haha, I just repeated your argument in a funny voice. That totally makes my argument seem more reasonable. Swah 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 swah. Refer to my previous statement a couple of interjections back.
Quinn, you are the last person to talk about the tone and intent of a video, so you'll forgive me if your word doesn't hold a lot of weight. Your next point, Quinn, you're encouraging their staff to leave them and saying they're actively hurting their staff by holding on to them. Oh, going straight to victimhood, are we, Quinn? Because according to you, no one has any control or agency, right?
No, that's not what she's saying, but whatever.
Nowhere in the video did I directly say that. All I did was lay my opinion out there. Whatever any of the animators personally feel of me, whatever weight my words may hold over them, they're going to do what they personally want to do. If they want to continue to work underneath someone else for whatever reason, they're going to. If they want to move on to try something new, they're going to.
Okay, so basically you did that video for absolutely nothing. You made that video carefully crafting a cogent argument about how they should move on from working for a storytime animator forever, and you expected nothing to happen afterwards. Bullshit, Lime. You wanted something to come out of that video. You wanted these storytime assistant animators to move on from working on storytime animators and to work more on their own projects. Don't say that wasn't the objective of that video, because that's obviously what you wanted. Otherwise that video wouldn't have existed. This is why the opinion card ultimately fails in every other objective you have. You can't just make such strong suggestions such as these, and then back away from them just because Quinn Curio is criticizing your points, saying that it's just you expressing your opinion, and they don't have to listen to you. Because then what happens is that you're leaving the possibility of these storytime assistant animators to not take your suggestion into consideration, and what you view as best for these animators will be less and less likely to happen, which will make your video fail in its objective, making it pointless and a huge waste of time to make. It's a counterproductive thing to do, and you're retreating from your objective for what? Quinn Curio called your intent of the video into question. I mean really, is that really what we're doing here? That's honestly pretty pathetic, dude. In reality, again, you wanted something out of this, and the only reason you are claiming otherwise is that Quinn Curio is criticizing your video. If you genuinely believe something should happen, if you're encouraging something to happen, fucking on up to it. Don't just cowardly retreat from your objectives and say you don't expect anything to come out of that video, because not only is that not true, but it's counterproductive to what you say you want.
Quinn, this entire point is you trying to virtue signal by morally shaming me.
Guys, isn't it so stupid that Quinn Curio is playing the victim card in behalf of these assistant animators? Who would do such a thing? Not me, obviously. Few seconds later, now let me tell you guys how Quinn Curio is morally shaming me. I'm being persecuted right now, she's banishing me to the fiery pits of hell, I'm being prosecuted and having my balls removed at this very moment. Have mercy, Quinn Curio, please don't beg me.
I will lick the screen. And maybe you're not okay with that, but I feel no shame.
You know I'm starting to sense a rip in space-time, and only God knows where I may find it.
I simply gave my thoughts and my opinion on a topic that I was invested in, that I was interested in.
Again, completely and utterly irrelevant. You simply just expressing your opinion isn't relevant to what Quinn Curio was talking about. The problem isn't a case of both of you having a difference in opinion. It has everything to do with your implications. It has everything to do with what you viewed as best for these storytime assistant animators. And it has everything to do with you tagging these storytime assistant animators unexpectedly, telling them to watch your video that can for all intents and purposes be interpreted as you wanting these same animators that you've tagged to stop working for these storytime animators altogether. Stop using the opinion card. All that does is make you look like a coward who doesn't know how to defend his points.
Because Quinn, just like you're allowed to have whatever feelings you want, your feelings are not any more or less important than my desire to create.
Oh wow, okay, now do you see why your opinion card is flimsy? You just demonstrated it right there, Lime. You just showed that anyone could just flip your opinion card in its head, and the argument could hold up just as well. Quinn Curio has the right to her opinion in your two videos that you have made, Lime. Oh yeah? Well, Lime has the right to his opinion in Quinn Curio's response in his video too. Okay, now what? Both of you guys have opinions, so what's your point? How does that add anything, if we want to analyze each other's opinion in the subject? Strange, it's almost like the opinion card doesn't serve anything relevant to the conversation whatsoever.
No matter what I say, it's the animators who at the end of the day are going to decide. Quinn, I'm not going to feel bad about this because I did nothing wrong. If me simply giving my honest thoughts in a completely calm, normal and respectful manner somehow offends you, hurts your feelings or anyone else's feelings, then I don't care.
Yeah, Lime, that's the problem. You don't care. If you're not going to take into account other people's perception of you, whether or not you personally agree with them, you're going to commit the same action over and over of tagging random people and making weird implications in your videos. If you don't want Quinn Curio to write paragraphs criticizing your video for these things, then actually take it into consideration for future reference.
That video is nothing but positive. It's not negative because you heard things you didn't want to hear. It's not negative because you heard things you didn't personally like or agree with. And if my video seriously did hurt anyone, then fucking grow a set, because if you can't even handle that video, then you have no business being on the internet. You have no business being a content creator.
Whoa, what's that? Was that you disrespecting other people's opinions I hear? Weren't you just over here stating that everything you just said in that video we were talking about is just your personal opinion? What's with the change? Now all of a sudden, if someone is offended over something you've said in the video, then they have no business in being on the internet. Where's the consistency in that? I thought you were the grand champion of respecting other people's opinions given you were using the I have the right to my opinion fallacy at every given turn. Now you don't want to do that, when it's an opinion that you especially don't agree with.
In any form of entertainment, it isn't the soft, docile and weak that thrive. It's people who are strong. People who have passion, who have conviction, not people who demand that everyone else subdue their strength to make up for their own weakness.
You're absolutely right, Lime. They don't do any of those things. They also wouldn't be getting defensive over someone simply criticizing their video and taking issue with some of the things that have been said in their video. And they also wouldn't twist whatever those critics are saying and turning it into a feels over reals situation and fling a bunch of random and substantiated insults about how their arguments can be boiled down to different variations of feels over reals arguments, dismissing claims being made in their criticisms outright, and acting like they are being personally attacked. If a person is strong enough to handle criticism, they wouldn't be doing any of those things. If not, perhaps they should take lessons from someone who says that insults and mockery are important rhetorical tools for criticism on the internet. Bold.
Your next point. Assuming he watched the video and didn't block you for spamming, what other reaction were you expecting? Was this just a setup? Quinn, the fact that you have to keep going back to the tagging thing is pathetic. It just shows you're absolutely scraping for any little bit you can get.
Yes, she's going back to the tagging thing, because it's relevant to the discussion. If you weren't tagging a bunch of random people that may or not have anything to do with you or your video, especially when most of them are storytime assistant animators, Quinn wouldn't even bother mentioning the tagging thing, because, as I stated earlier, you tagging multiple people, including the odd ones out, may have been the reason why he blocked you. This is one of the biggest problems with this part of the video. You don't seem to understand why the things that happened, as well as you refusing to put yourself in one's shoes. You might not have a problem with tagging multiple people to watch your video, but other people might, and it's important to take that into consideration for future reference. This is all just basic social skills.
And what was I expecting? Oh, I don't know. How about being adult? How about have a conversation, have some dialogue? That is, if he or any of the animators or anyone I talk about ever in any of my videos wants to have a discussion, wants to talk. They're not obligated to. They can if they want to. I let them know. I give them the option by being direct. Whether it was positive or negative, I don't care. James could have left a comment. He could have DM'd me on Twitter. He could have sent me an email. He could have done any amount of things. But no, instead he blocks me like a coward. Because just like you, Quinn, he's too soft to handle anything that doesn't fit within his worldview.
No, he blocked you because he didn't want to get tagged by you and being part of an endless sea of other Twitter users that are already tagged. God, the amount of lack of self-awareness is making my nose burn. Do you not realize that this is one of the biggest reasons why he may have blocked you in the first place? I most certainly do, and that should say something, since I am autistic. That's honestly pretty sad. Besides, even if he didn't block you simply because he wanted nothing to do with you tagging him, you did tag a bunch of storytime assistant animators on Twitter, and the video was basically about how they should simply stop working with storytime animators if it's to have them reach their success and have a stake in their own independent career as animators. You can argue all day long about how this is all give and take and they don't have to listen to you. The amount of people you tagged alone tells a different story. With that many people you've tagged, a lot of people are going to believe that you think that what you're saying is important, and must be heeded by everyone, and it's important for everyone you've tagged to follow through on what you see as best for them. Whether or not this is your intention, a lot of people are going to view it as such. James may have thought that as well, and he blocked you not only for tagging him, but for tagging his friends in a video basically saying they should sell their souls to the devil and leave him, or at least be less reliant on him.
And was this a setup? And just like that, Quinn, you show you never wanted to have a discussion. You never wanted to have any dialogue. Your mind was already made up about me as soon as you finished my video.
The reason she asked whether or not it was a setup was because of the following video that you've made about James was of you gloating and celebrating the fact that he blocked you. Just see for yourself.
Oh no! What happened? Oh no! How terrible! That's just awful! How terrible! Oh no!
Yes, the odd one's out. He blocked me on Twitter. Now I hear you ask, Liam, you... What did you do? What happened? Did you insult him? Did you get into an overly long Twitter thread argument with him? What exactly was this huge bombshell that caused James to block you? Well, you remember my video, the Storytime Assistant Animators? Yeah. That was the video. It was all completely fine until then. Almost immediately after, I go on his Twitter to find that I'm blocked. You know, the same video where I give compliments to him and Jaden and the animators who work for them. Yeah, that video. The video with the happy piano music. This is what just sealed the deal for James here. I guess this was just a step too far. Call it what you want. He got his feelings hurt. I offended his sensibilities. But yeah, this was clearly just too much for him, I guess.
How can anyone watch this and not come to the conclusion that your video was a setup from the get-go, especially when considering all of the things that we've talked about?
Be honest with yourself, Curio. You skimmed through my video, you heard what you wanted to hear, and you got pissy when you heard things you didn't like to hear.
Okay, aside from the fact that this perfectly describes how you covered her Storytime Critics video, if you've been paying attention to anything that went on that made Quinn Curio come in and state her piece, she wasn't just scheming through your video and writing a 10,000 word full about something you said she didn't like. She was relying on your following video to make an educated guess on your intention of the video.
And you instantly assumed that I was a bad person. You keep on doing this, Quinn. You keep coming back to appeal to emotion. All this amounts to is you and James heard something you didn't like. You and James got offended by something you didn't like. Quinn, you can sit atop your ivory tower as much as you like. Get some new material other than mififis. Next point. Seriously, how would you feel if some stranger came in and started telling you about your relationship with your staff, some of whom might be your actual good friends, and this stranger starts talking about how you're getting in the way of your friends self-actualizing and chasing their dreams?
Damn, Quinn, you made an excellent point. This'll surely give Lime something to think about, wouldn't you say? Maybe Lime will actually listen to you this time. Perhaps he will put his pride aside and put himself into other people's shoes and think about why he might have been blocked for the things that he has done. Well, let's have a listen. Let's see how Lime engages with this question.
To address your stranger line, Quinn, it doesn't matter whether I'm strangers, acquaintances, friends. This is all completely irrelevant. If I want to give my opinion on something, I'm going to give my opinion on something.
Yet, rather than actually answering the question, he immediately jumps straight into the semantics and wording of the question. This is going to be a serious problem, but I'll just play the rest of the clip to elaborate further.
How close we are is irrelevant. I say my thoughts. I don't care who you are, and I certainly don't care how important you think you are. If anyone wants to say something to anybody, if anyone wants to give criticism to anybody, their affiliation with said person doesn't matter. It only matters to a bunch of wound up weirdos like you, Quinn. Quinn, you keep on going off this false premise that people have to abide by your mindset. And how would I feel? I know this might come as a huge shocker. This might blow you away, Quinn, but unlike you and the odd ones out, not everybody curls into a ball the moment they hear something they don't want to hear, or something that might go against their personal thoughts and opinions. Crazy, yes, I know. First of all, I'd be curious, so I'd listen to what the person has to say. Then if I think that their opinion, their thoughts, their argumentation, what they're saying is crap, then I'll ignore it. But if what they're saying has some merit to it, if it's good argumentation, regardless of whether it's negative or positive, whether it goes with me or goes against me in terms of my thought process, my views, my opinions, my ideology, whatever the case, then I'll talk to this person, I'll engage this person, I'll get to know them more. Get to know exactly what kind of character they are, because some of us can have an actual conversation, Quinn. We don't all need to act like an overly emotional, pestilent child the second we get some confrontation.
Notice how Lime is not actually answering Quinn's question in this interjection. This is what happens when you're just going to cherry pick bits of semantics. You're not actually engaging in the roots of the argument being presented. If you guys have a memory of a goldfish, Quinn was asking how Lime would feel if someone just came in and said that you're getting in the way of your friend's self-actualizing. Lime responded by analyzing her usage of the word stranger, and talked about how you should be able to give opinions on something regardless of how close you are to the person you're criticizing. Going back to the actual question, and by going back I mean he went back to the semantics again, when he touched on how would you feel, he gave a rebuttal saying that he'd be interested in what the actual person has to say, and you don't need to curl up into a ball the moment when we have some confrontation. So essentially, everything that Quinn just said completely went over Lime's head. Both of these claims are completely detached from what Quinn Curio was trying to say. Quinn wasn't talking about how would you feel if you received criticism. She wasn't talking about just any confrontation. She was asking about how you would feel if some random person came in and just told you that your friends need to stop working for you, if it's to achieve their self-actualization and chasing their dreams, because apparently you're holding them back for some reason. If you actually took the time to answer the question, you would take a step back and try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Try to understand why James may have blocked you in the first place. But since you are so focused on analyzing the semantics of the question, you didn't actually answer the question. You instead gave half-ass rebuttals that have nothing to do with what Quinn was trying to say. You do this a lot, and that's why many of your points don't actually do anything productive in actually engaging in Quinn's point.
And for your last point, Quinn, you say, if it was me, I would be like, you got terminal parasocial poisoning. You don't know us, and until my friends express these feelings, this is all fan fiction. Parasocial poisoning, coming from a disingenuous, deceptive, cowardly, neurotic weirdo like you, Quinn, that's pretty rich.
Alright, let's look up what parasocial means together, shall we? Parasocial interactions refers to a kind of psychological relationship experienced by an audience in their mediated encounters with performers in the mass media, particularly in television and in online platforms. Yeah, not sure what all those insults you flung at Quinn Curio like a fucking monkey has anything to do with this definition.
As for that whiny little fanfiction line, Quinn, whether they express those feelings or not is irrelevant. See, you cannot get past this, Quinn. You cannot look past your own personal emotions. You can clutch your pearl necklace for dear life. I don't care. All you're arguing here is, oh, it's wrong because you don't know. I don't need to know how they feel about this.
Yeah, that's the problem. You don't know what actually goes on behind the scenes between storytime animators and their assistant animators, so whatever you say concerning it is completely irrelevant. It's based entirely on you guessing. If the storytime assistant animators are actually expressing their feelings on how they want to move on from working with Jaden or James, you would have heard from them by now. But they are not saying those things, are they? Lime, whatever goes on behind the scenes is not worth parasocially analyzing, especially if there is no sign or indication of them actually feeling those things in the first place. It's similar to me analyzing whether or not Jaden was transsexual. If you're just going to parasocially analyze on whether or not they feel those things, you're going to end up looking like a fool if you don't have any proof, or if it turns out that the opposite is correct. Solely relying on you guessing is not the correct way in concluding which is best for these storytime assistant animators, especially when you're tagging random people on Twitter to watch your video, as if it's gospel. There is no point in ignoring this fact. All you have left now is the opinion card, saying that you have the right to give out your opinion. Fine, have your own opinions, God bless you for having them. However, that doesn't mean you're correct, that doesn't mean your video isn't inherently intrusive, and that doesn't mean that everyone is going to take it well.
Whether they agree or disagree with my perspective, that doesn't change how I feel about the topic of the video.
Fine, have your own opinions. No one is stopping you from having your own opinions. God bless you. You believe they should move on to bigger and better things based on your own intuition. Have a lollipop. Fuck it, have 2 lollipops. Lime, stop using the opinion card. Obviously nothing Quinn is saying infringes on your right to have an opinion.
Quinn, your exchange on Discord was embarrassing. This is what you call argumentation. Slight variations of miffifis, missensibilities, a whole lot of moral outrage and how dare you. And as you can see here, this was my original response on Discord, but rather than just repeat all this, I figured, you know what, I curve stomped your arguments into the ground the first time, I'll do it again.
Not to mention doing a shitty job at it.
But now I'm going to show the absolute worst of Quinn Curio. Someone who honestly believes that they're the good person, even when their actions directly contradict this. When Quinn Curio defended Yandere Dev,
And now we have clown world music that has been used by reactionaries. Real mature there.
Quinn, you want a moral grandstand to me when you're defending Yandere Dev, one of the worst, biggest pieces of crap you will ever find on the internet. And no, Quinn, it isn't criticism that's stopping Yandere Dev from making his game. Laziness and incompetence is stopping him from making his game. You have Scott, the guy who created Five Nights at Freddy's, create a massively successful game series, become a millionaire from it. You have Undertale, you have Skullgirl. There's a plethora of people who started around the same time as Scott. There's no excuse for why after 7 years the game is nowhere near completion, and it's not going to be, if ever. It's glorified vaporware. And Quinn, you want me to explain to you why people call him a piece of shit? Because he is one, and this is not an opinion. This has been proven. Videos, screenshots, the evidence is all out there. Here's him in his Discord server, mocking someone who has DID, dissociative identity disorder, where he removed a fan from his server because he found him annoying, because he actually believed that this disorder was made up. Here's evidence of him threatening suicide and getting creators of other games to stop their development. This is a guy so petty, jealous and vindictive that he wants to stop other people from achieving their dream and developing their games, to the point that he threatens self-harm.
Yeah, Quinn Curio obviously shouldn't have defended Yandere Dev. Yandere Dev is a massive piece of shit because of the reasons you gave. I agree with you. It was pretty misguided of her to defend him, but you know what? That's all it is, misguided. However, whether or not you agree with her decision to defend Yandere Dev, her reasons for defending him stems from her principles. For those who haven't already caught on, Quinn has said that the reason why most storytime animators are stagnating is not just ego and narcissism, and the inability to take criticism. It's the fact that hundreds, if not millions of people are dogpiling them constantly, which is not good for your mental health, leading to stagnation in your YouTube career. If you don't live in your parents' basement and constantly indulging yourself in YouTube cataclysm and drama, in the surface it's the same thing here. Yandere Dev is constantly being dogpiled by millions of people, leading to him stagnating in his game development. Unfortunately for Quinn, while her heart is in the right place, there is far more to it than just another case of stagnation due to constant bombardment by millions of people, and what you've shown is exactly why.
Quinn, it took your own fans calling you out on your own Twitter for you to delete this, for you to realize, oh, whoops, I fucked up. You propped him up like he was some poor, innocent victim. And here where you say, no, I didn't. Is he actually dangerous? Forget it, sorry. I'll delete it and save the argument for someone worth it. Quinn, this is how fake and disingenuous you are. See, you didn't want to make a point. You didn't want to do good. You wanted to virtue signal on Twitter for some moral brownie point.
Hey, hold in for a minute. Quinn Curio reconsidered her decision of defending Yandere Dev after receiving additional information about who the guy is, and all you can ever do is just tell her that she didn't want to make a point. She wanted to virtue signal on Twitter. This is such a blatant case of damned if you do, damned if you don't I have ever seen. If Quinn was still defending Yandere Dev even after being informed about who he was, you would have been just as angry at her. You would have laced it to her, asking her why she would even think of defending such a horrible monster such as Yandere Dev knowing who he actually was. But when Quinn didn't do that, reconsidering defending Yandere Dev, you are still mad at her even after apologizing. Since you're so hell-bent in demonizing Quinn Curio in any way, shape, or form, any persons, except players, would have made uneducated guess that this is exactly what would happen. And what the fuck do you mean virtue signaling? Quinn has everything to lose if she's going to defend Yandere Dev given how much hate he has. Who the fuck is she virtue signaling towards? 5% of the population in the internet. Seems pretty uneconomical to signal your virtue to that portion of people. If she was virtue signaling, she would have flocked with the general consensus and called him a piece of shit like everyone else is. But she didn't do that. She referred back to her principles. It seems pretty hard to virtue signal if you're going to rely on that sort of thing, wouldn't you say? In my opinion, I think that's more respectable than just repeating what everyone else is saying for no reason, and it's even more respectable if you're going to reconsider your positions in a certain topic, such as what Quinn Curio did with Yandere Dev.
Because if you cared, you would have done a smidget of research. Besides just blindly saying, oh, he's a victim, leave him alone, he's a victim. Save the argument for someone worth it. Quinn, save the bullshit until you get some integrity.
Oh, you mean that thing that Quinn Curio already had in the first place?
Quinn, you want a moral grandstand to me about a video I made that you didn't like? Meanwhile, you prop up a bully, a perverted freak, a guy who's extorted money, stolen money, someone who's engaged in manipulation, blackmail, threats. This is just confirmation at this point, Quinn. You don't care about being good, you care about looking good.
How? All Quinn Curio did was defend Yandere Dev and referred back to standing up for someone in the face of constant hate, and then reconsidering it when she found out who he actually was, and why he was hated in the first place. She made an honest mistake, and she had everything to fucking lose from it when she was defending him. Looking good my ass. She didn't reconsider her positions because she was getting criticized for it. She reconsidered her position because she was more educated about him.
Now to end this with my final thoughts, Quinn, this is not just simply a war of ideologies. It isn't just I think differently than you, I have different views than you. Because unlike you, Quinn, I was willing to have a discussion and a conversation. You weren't, and that's why when you compare the wording and how we talk in our Discord conversation, I have a completely calm, normal demeanor. Meanwhile, your wording on Discord is grandstanding, overly pestilent, judgmental, negative, and it's just filled to the brim with condescending moral outrage.
Yeah, I'm sure you had a completely calm demeanor in this video. You didn't come off like some butthurt angry person who is doing whatever it takes to demonize someone for criticizing the implications of your video that someone had to block you on Twitter over. You were completely calm and understanding, unlike that know-it-all shrew Quinn Curio.
Quinn, you lied about a quote in my video so that you could try to villainize.
Which she didn't. You literally played a clip that is supposedly you talking about skills and talent, but a couple of microseconds later you were talking about how storytime assistant animators were spinning their wheels, something that Quinn Curio was talking about.
You take utterly meaningless things like a joke from the Right Opinions video and blow it up to be, oh, they're calling them a cult.
That wasn't a joke. The Right Opinion was actually trying to make a point when he was comparing them to the Stanford cult. According to him, storytime animators have a tendency of presenting a clean and warm persona, going to great lengths to preserve this image. No jokes, exaggerations perhaps, but they are nonetheless meant to emulate a point.
You talk about meanness and bullying, yet you cowardly downplay and try to gloss over the fact that that's what 4 Storytime animators were doing with Daft Peanut.
She didn't downplay what happened. In fact, literally after the clip you've shown, she even called the action mean and typically dismissive, and what they present on YouTube is tame compared to what they do on other social media. Case in point, Discord. Not to mention, even if she supposedly downplayed it, Quinn even said that meanness is an important rhetorical tool. She just has a problem with how these critics use them in particular.
I used to think, Quinn, that you had good intentions but poor execution. Now I know I was wrong about that. You don't have good intentions.
Why? Because she criticized your video and mistakenly defended Yandere Dev given her principles. Like, is that really worth you demonizing her and framing her character? The latter was just her making an honest mistake, and the former was of her looking into your situation, because she wanted to know why James blocked you over your video. Who fucking who? Suspiciously enough, you paid more attention to Quinn criticizing your video more than her mistakenly defending Yandere Dev. Really makes you think.
You're biased, you're disingenuous, you're outright hypocritical. You play to the song of your own narrative, because you're not looking to be open and engaged in a conversation, and you're not able to do that by being fair and balanced. You can only do it by generalizing, being deceptive, judgmental, hypocritical, and disingenuous. Quinn, you, I, everyone else, we have the choice to act however we please online. If you want to continue to be every bit as bad as I've shown you to be in this video, then fine, go about your business. But if you genuinely want to get better, you're going to have to look beyond your own perceptions and sensibilities, your own biased thoughts of how everything should be, how people should be, how people should conduct themselves by your accord.
Or, as I like to call it, giving critiques on other people's actions, such as what she did with your video.
Doesn't matter whether it's the past with your video, Quinn, whether it's November of last year with our conversation on Discord, or May of this year you defending Yandere Dev. Doesn't matter, past, present, and most likely future. This is the most fitting video title I've ever done, because it perfectly encompasses everything about you, Quinn. You masquerade as a good person for the applause of others. You project your own insecurities and sensibilities onto others. And you lie, outright villainize people who don't fall within line of your worldview.
Everything that you're saying about Quinn Curio is everything I can say about you, and there is evidence in this commentary.
You are positively disingenuous, Quinn. I have absolutely no respect for you, because you stand for nothing. You have no character. All you have is a mask I've ripped from your face. Quinn, the next time you want to criticize someone, the next time you want to call into question someone's character, make sure to look in the fucking mirror.
Likewise. Anyway, the video is over. Lime, I am not going to hold my punches for final thoughts. This video was fucking terrible. I stated earlier that this video is up there as Doodle Tones' worst commentaries of 2021, and holy hell, she wasn't kidding at all. It is definitely warranted. Almost all of your main points have either been thoroughly debunked in this video or are just a byproduct of you completely misunderstanding and mischaracterizing what Quinn Curio was talking about in her Storytime Critics video. For instance, both of your points criticizing Quinn cowardly glossing over Storytime animators stealing Daft Tina's video for a Discord call, as well as the right opinion making a quote-unquote throwaway joke, are both objectively wrong. For the former option, Quinn Curio didn't cowardly gloss over them being mean to Daft Tina. She was using it as an example on how they are not just innocent little angels that could do no wrong like the critics would expect, but they are just normal people with flaws much like everyone else, and it really shouldn't be anyone's surprise. As for the latter option, the right opinion wasn't making any jokes. He was using the Sanford cult example to prove a point, as stated earlier. While we are talking about you mischaracterizing and misunderstanding Quinn's video, your whole takeaway about Quinn Curio's opinion in meanness in critical videos is completely wrong as well. You keep pretending that Quinn Curio has a problem with meanness in critical videos in and of themselves, when that's obviously not the case. She said literally a few seconds after your first clip over that meanness is a vital and important rhetorical tool in critical videos. This is a problem, because you keep propping up and relying on this caricature of her being some over-emotional thin-skinned pussy who sits and squirts her diapers every day throughout the video. So the more you rely on this straw man of her throughout the video, the more likely it is for you to look like a fool when presented with evidence that directly contradicts this notion, such as the one I've mentioned above. When you were responding to Quinn Curio's Discord message to you, you came off as extremely defensive against her critiques. All she did was call into question your intent on the video, because she was making an educated guess on why the odd ones out may have blocked you, and all you can ever do is just inundate her with a bunch of insults and assumptions about her character, mostly revolving a caricature that I just mentioned. When you're not doing those things, you would pathetically retreat from your position and just draw the opinion card simply, because Quinn Curio was criticizing the main idea about your video. And as if it wasn't bad enough, you literally played a clip that played exactly in Quinn Curio's favor and tried to pass it off like you were talking about something else, when really you weren't. You were using skills and talents to bridge towards the main idea of the video, which is that Storytime assistant animators need to focus on their own YouTube careers more. I mean, there is no escaping this. Quinn Curio wasn't lying at all. That's what you were talking about throughout the video. Geez, for a person who brands himself as a discussions channel, as opposed to just some regular old commentary channel, you seem to have a real problem with people having a discussion with you about what you've said that made someone block you on Twitter. However you want to feel about Quinn Curio as a person, her actions or her animation community critics video, Quinn's motivation for making that video and all the other stuff that you called her out for all stems from the principle of compassion for other people, looking after the well-being of others, even when she has everything to lose from doing it. The motivation for making your video in Quinn is driven entirely out of spite above everything else. Behind crafting a caricature of her, misconstruing points in the worst ways possible, outright lying about those same points, vaguely gesturing at imagined hypocrisies, mansplaining her about how criticism works, as if she didn't know already, and opportunistically hopping in on Quinn Curio defending Yandere Dev to get back on her lies pure, unadulterated spite for Quinn. And you're doing all of this for what? Quinn Curio called into question your intention of the video. Really? Is this really worth 30 minutes of video? Lime, despite all the things that I've said about you in this video, I don't think you're necessarily a bad person, but if you were to take anything from this video, actually listen to what others are saying and not assume the worst in their intentions. Because then what happens is that you're not going to give credit where credit is due. You're going to end up making up false claims about what they are saying, latching onto points that have nothing to do with the main argument, and selectively choosing whichever parts of the video that fits within your worldview about how you think they are and what they believe, which is not how you debunk points effectively. You also shouldn't just mischaracterize them and try to make them out like they are on par with Hitler, when all Quinn Curio did was mistakenly defend Yandere Dev and took your video into question. None of that is worth this amount of demonization like you presented in the video, when Quinn Curio's intentions were driven by compassion and looking out for someone's well-being. You took by far one of the most emotionary and compassionate acts in the platform, and you have to shoot it all down like it's nobody's business and claim that it's the exact opposite, because she hurt your feelings this one time, and you wanted revenge. You know, I could forgive this video. I could forgive all of the terrible points that you've made in this video, if this video wasn't filled with vitriolic hatred towards Quinn. This is honestly the worst part of the video. This video is just blinded by seething, vitriolic hatred. If this video wasn't just blinded by frothing at the mouth animosity, 99% of the video would have been totally different. It could have been a more constructive video despite its mediocre points. For future reference, if you were to cover a person like Quinn Curio in the future, don't do that shit, even if you feel like they'd wronged you in some way. Take it from me, I was pretty fucking spiteful towards Doodle Tones from late 2016 to early 2018, made assumptions about her character, made a disastrous commentary in her filled with ad hominem attacks, rated her channel, you name it. But then I stopped hating on her so much, because I've succumbed to something. You wanna know what that is? It's called respect. Doodle Tones doesn't need to put up with my bullshit, and neither does Quinn Curio. Neither of these people need to have their characters smeared like both of us did, and neither of them need to have their intentions tarnished by us simply because we felt that they'd wronged us in some way. When it comes to spite-filled videos, Quinn Curio is simply not worth it, especially for someone whose intentions are nothing but positive and driven by compassion, and no amount of mistakes like the only one you've mentioned about Yandere Dev is going to change that fact. I've outgrown my spite-filled, vitriolic hatred towards Doodle Tones, and once you understand this fact, perhaps the same will happen to you and Quinn. It can only happen if you put your pride aside and respect her intentions, and try to be significantly more constructive, even if she made a mistake, rather than shooting it all down and completely distorting her character and her intentions, and make her out like she's the most evil thing in the world who stands for nothing and has no character. Quinn Curio hasn't done any of that in her video. She hasn't done that when she was responding to your video. Why should you? Which way, Western man? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I spent a good 6 to 7 months working on this video. And Liam, I hope I let you see the situation in a different light. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you spam it to everyone in various different websites, and tag random strangers on Twitter to watch this video until one of them blocks you for tagging them. Hoops. See you next time, girls.